and then you need an army of people behind it to keep it up and running. It's almost as easy to train a human being on it, then why would I spend the money on technology?
Welcome to the GBS Masterminds podcast, the one and only platform for global business service leaders to share their experiences of building world-class shared service organizations. My name is Sashi Narahari, founder and CEO of 𝗕𝗣𝗢𝗍, and I'll be your host. Today, I'm honored to host Puneet Uppal, a business leader with over 30 years of experience. Over his career, Puneet has worked with some of the most reputed organizations such as Mondelez, Genpact, and PwC. He is currently serving as the head of GBS at Diageo. Puneet, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sashi, for having me. Glad to be here.
All right, Puneet, we'll get started with a brief background about yourself. Can you tell us maybe your career journey?
Yeah, sure. So like you said, almost 30 years ago, I started out as a chartered accountant in corporate finance with Crompton Greaves, just like probably most chartered accountants would want to at that time. And I also had a stint during that time in the first sort of 4 to 5 years with TCS and Coopers and Lybrand, dabbling in consulting as a financial analyst and doing a few things there. The next chapter really from a shared services perspective for me started with GE Capital, International Services in India, when this team was being pulled together for the first attempt at doing anything related to finance and accounting operations in the shared services space. And it was a lot of fun with me, a laptop on my bag and touring different GE businesses, meeting the controllers and CFOs, trying to see how we could build a solution for doing finance and accounting work out of India. We had a lot of success. Eventually, within the first 6 odd years, we grew to almost about 14,000 people in a captive setup. And that's when GE decided to monetize the asset. And that led to the birth of Genpact. At that time, I was a global FP&A leader for Genpact through that deal process, and then moved back to client servicing, which eventually landed me in the US to manage one of our largest relationships, which was with Wells Fargo outside of the GE business itself. And then I had the opportunity to work with several different clients in several different industries, which really taught me, no matter which industry you go to, finance is finance, right? And a lot of shared services and standards are shared services and standards. The outcomes may be different. The recipients of your services might be different. But at its core, the solutioning tenets were pretty similar. And then after a while of doing that, I got this excellent opportunities to move to Mondelez to sort of go on the other side of the table and set up GBS for them. They already had a GBS for several years, but it needed to be brought to the next level, especially as they were separating from Kraft. It was like a birth of a new $26 billion company. And there was a very interesting agenda, and I was excited to be there to grow what eventually ended up being almost a 5,000 person strong Mondelez Business Services unit. And then very recently in September, I moved to London to work at Diageo, leading shared services for the company. So that in a nutshell is my career, and lived on 3 continents and worked in several companies.
Congratulations on your new role at Diageo.
Thank you, Shashi.
So Puneet, I'm going to ask you, looks like you have very all-rounded experience. You started your career as an accountant, then with GE, Genpact, then you went to the actual client side with Mondelez and now Diageo. So I'm going to ask you the 6 dead or alive debated questions in the GBS space today. First one is, in 10 years, do you think BPOs for outsourcing will be dead or alive?
This is an interesting thing, and I have to break up to be able to answer this question in dead or alive. I think conceptually it will be alive. So let me take the dead or alive out of the equation. However, the condition to it being alive will be how good are these organizations at servicing the clients at the end of that business process. Whether you do outsource, whether you do insource, whether you do some other model, doesn't matter. But if you understand that you are here to service the needs of your customers and suppliers and stakeholders and employees, and you're running that business process effectively for the company, increasing the velocity of what's going through that to actually meet the speed of business requirements today, I think it will very much be alive.
All right. So maybe like an extension of that question, this is in regards to the physical service centers. In 10 years, will large centralized service centers be dead or alive, especially given the COVID effect, for the past 2 years, there's all this talk about work from anywhere. And as you know, BPOs are in this big, large processing centers. So I'm curious, what do you think about that concept 10 years from now?
Look, again, I don't know if I want to plan for 10 years. But if you ask me a dead or alive question, I think a good chunk of this will be alive, but doing very different things, like I said. The companies, including Diageo, for example, or back in Mondelez when I was there, or if you go to the other side of the table for Accentures and Genpacts of the world, preserving the culture of the organization, driving collaboration, driving value for their clients, whether internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. If you're a captive, you're always worried about internal stakeholders. I think all of that will be very, very much in demand and therefore alive. So it's not a question of large, big centers. I mean, even that is debatable, right? There's a large center where 10,000 people go to work, or a large one where 1,000 people go to work. I think what will drive their existence is the value they're able to deliver to the business.
All right. I'm going to switch from the actual operations itself to technology. Couple of questions. The third one is on RPA. In the next 10 years, do you think RPA in the current form, so specifically if you think about the RPA in the current form, it is the as-is screen flow automation. Of course, those vendors are also evolving. That whole concept of as-is screen flow automation, do you think it'll be dead or alive 10 years from now?
I don't know if you want to call it you got lucky or not, but I think you've run into the first dead as an answer.
Okay.
And I frankly think it's probably already dead. And the reason I say that is not because automations don't make sense or we can't do it, but it is almost beginning to look to me like the first year of labor arbitrage, right? In the old times. The first year there is a gain, you see some immediate benefit, but because pure play RPA does not carry the intelligence portion or pairing of the human intelligence next to it, the benefits die out very quickly. Processes are dynamic, demands are dynamic, systems are dynamic. You change 2 or 3 parameters, 2 or 3 screens to change the user experience or meet the user experience expectations, and the bot fails. And then you need an army of people behind it to keep it up and running. It's almost as easy to train a human being on it. Then why would I spend the money on technology trying to build a bot, right? So it all depends. Like you said, these companies are also evolving and learning fast, and they better keep pace at it. But in its current form, it's not going anywhere. I think it's dead.
All right, got it. The fourth question is another technology, which is artificial intelligence, which, as we know, very different, not the same as RPA. But what are your thoughts of AI in GBS in 10 years from now? Let me add a little bit more context here, right? So I think you could say AI, there is a lot of hype, but at the same time, Google is betting the farm on AI. If you look at the amount of investments, if you look at like somebody like Tesla. So I want to, my question is more specific to GBS, not AI at large, knowing that being a GBS leader, what are your thoughts on AI, and would it be dead or alive specifically as an application within GBS?
100%. I think this will be the front runner in all investments, even in business services or shared services, because the biggest push companies want to drive today, it's all about getting in a productive mode versus a reactive mode. And the only way you can do that is by picking up your trends, picking up what you're sensing in the market, putting it on an engine that allows you to predict business outcomes, and therefore also help you predict the actions you need to take to get to those results. So definitely there and alive, Shashi, I believe.
All right. We'll go to the fifth question. This is kind of back to the service center locations. India as a service center location. In 10 years, given the consistent wage increases, growing inflation rates, will India as a top choice for service centers be dead or alive?
I think it's Friday, so I'm in a very positive mode. I think it will be alive. I think it will be alive, but it cannot be taken for granted, just like almost anything else, right? If India continues to build skills at scale, it'll be alive. Just inflation won't kill it, because inflation is everywhere. Whether you go to the US, where I've been for the last 14 years, or now here in London in trying to look for talent globally, and here, there's shortage everywhere. There's inflation everywhere. So I don't think that's the killer. The killer will be, are the skills compatible with what the industry needs and the stakeholders of these business services need.
Got it. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, this is something that I can relate to, because inflation in general, a lot of countries have, but I do think that there is a lot of wage increase and there is a continuous increase of attrition. So you hire skills. So what do you think about that? The other two parameters of the wage increases and how sustainable is it, as well as the attrition generally tends to be higher too, because you're investing a lot in training and L&D and upskilling. What do you think about those two factors?
I think the solution to managing attrition better is getting better with the topics we discussed earlier. Artificial intelligence, automation of your work processes, standardization, making sure that even if there is attrition, it doesn't matter to you, right? I want to make it a non-event. If it is there, it's there. Big deal. I know how to deal with it. When it comes to wage inflation, like I said, I'm ready to pay higher wages, but if it also brings higher skill with it, right? That value to inflation ratio, if that is in sync with what is the requirement of my business, I think it is a positive, virtuous cycle, which yields better results than controlling inflation. I think inflation is okay if it brings value. There's nothing wrong with it.
Got it. All right. So then the sixth dead or alive question, the big question, the fate of GBS itself. Will GBS as an organization, I mean, it's going through a lot of evolution. It started with a certain purpose 20 years ago, and there's a continuous evolution. What do you think about GBS as an organization? Will it be dead or alive?
I think it will be alive for all the reasons, like I said, more and more market-facing resources, commercial teams, sales teams, innovation teams, all of them want to get closer and closer to the consumer and the customer, right? Especially, again, in the CPG space, I'm 100% sure in financial services or every other industry, it's the same story. And it is these organizations at the center that if they continue to provide value, predictive analytics, faster decision-making, driving standards, increasing the velocity of processes and the speed at which the business can be conducted, the ease with which our suppliers and customers can engage with us. I think if you drive those parameters, which we are focusing big time at Diageo as well, if you focus on that, definitely, I would almost say more relevant than even today. So very much alive.
All right. Then maybe just a last question here. What would be your advice to the other GBS leaders? What's most important for them to keep their eyes on for success?
I think the theme of today, in today's conversation, Shashi, and you and I have chatted about this in some of our other forums we've been together at, is it's all about talent. So I ran into this excellent equation recently with one of my partners, and it basically said performance equals potential minus interference. So the way I'm thinking about this thing today is get the best talent on board, work with your business and stakeholders and know what objectives need to be met, set those goals, have a strong governance mechanism in place, and get out of their way. That's my focus and has been for a while and will continue to stay like that. That's all I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah. So at High Radius, we use this term called the 3 Ps: players, playbooks, and player analytics. And if you just think of a sports analogy, it's all about the players finally. Yeah. And then the coach's job is to figure out a way to assemble them to get them into the right direction. Puneet, so this has been a very insightful conversation. Definitely it is a lucky Friday because you only killed one, which is RPA. You kept 5 alive. It's very interesting because we're getting these different perspectives from various GBS leaders. So I'm sure your input as one of these episodes would be super valuable. So thank you so much. It was a delight to have you on the GBS Masterminds today.
Thanks, Ashay. You have a good weekend. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
That was the GBS Masterminds podcast. For more information, visit gbsmasterminds.com and make sure to search for GBS Masterminds in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And on behalf of the team here at High Radius, thanks for listening.